Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before I get started, I do have a Kickstarter going on for Slice of Life, an anime adventure action comic book. If you enjoy animes like Pokémon, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, or even Power Rangers, it's a parody on all those and many more based on our Slice of Life comic book on WEBTOON. Very new reader friendly, so if you like anime, I think you'll very much enjoy this one. But let's jump into the comic books. Also, I should mention that at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week. So in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured on the episode. This week I had a pretty small haul. There was only 8 comics, but there were a lot of bigger titles that came out. So it almost felt like a fifth Wednesday in that way. But it's the first day of the week, the first Wednesday of the month. And let's jump in. Number 8 for me is Batman Catwoman, The Gotham War, Scorched Earth. And this is the last issue of Gotham War, an event I have felt extremely lukewarm about, and I feel like the ending is just as lukewarm. And honestly, I thought the artwork really dipped here, at least in the previous issues. We've had pretty strong artwork and some threads with like Catwoman and Batman or the Bat family. And honestly, I just feel like there wasn't really a lot of character story here. Obviously, the plot has honestly been very weak for this one as we get to see Catwoman and Batman just fight Vandal Savage. That's pretty much the whole issue. And there's just not a big pow with this one. This is their big event of the year, and I just felt like it was very fillerish and didn't do much for the characters. So overall, giving that 2 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, a book that I personally have not been attached to, but I want to see where it goes, and that is Ultimate Universe issue 1. I believe this is a one-shot, and then after this we're going to get into the next 3 titles, the official titles of the Ultimate Universe, which is XMen, Black Panther, and Spider-Man, which we actually got more of an announcement of what Spider-Man's going to entail, which I'm super excited for. We are going to see the Spider-Man family. You know, I'm also very curious to see, is this going to be bigger than the actual Spider-Man book right now? Is this going to prove the point of, hey, we want to see Spider-Man married and we want to see him with a family. So I'm curious to see exactly the direction of this one and what that's going to entail. And I like that we're taking a different step with the Ultimate Universe, because you could have just done the Ultimate Universe again, but we had that 20 years ago. Why not do something new? And that's something I'm, again, very excited for. Now, this issue focuses more on the Avengers side of the Ultimate Universe. I never really read a lot of the Avengers in the Ultimate Universe, because I picked up the Ultimate Comics and really read through them monthly after Ultimatium. And with that, the Avengers were kind of disbanded. There wasn't as many Avengers titles at that point, and then the X-Men were completely dead. So really they were focusing on different sides of the Ultimate Universe, and obviously focusing on Spider-Man. So this one we get to see the Avengers, we get to see Thor, we get to see Iron Man, we get to see the rest of the crew. And for me, I just didn't feel as attached to it because of it. But I thought the artwork was really good, and I think if you already like this world or you like the previous Prelude comic book, you'll continue to enjoy this. But I'm more excited for what it means for these upcoming 3 series that also don't feel too connected character-wise. I'm sure the plot will thicken as we get into the Ultimate Universe more, but it's just not the side that I enjoy about these books as much. And I like the Ultimate Universe when it has to do with character coming first and the big explosion of the universe coming second. All right, moving on to the topic of the video, which is number 6, SpiderBoy, issue 1. Did we need a SpiderBoy ongoing book? This is a complicated question because I love when Marvel can reinvent themselves. I like when we get to see new characters, give a chance to new characters, but I also like when those new characters kind of have more of a punch to be there, especially because there's so many Spider characters that I do feel like have a lot of movement with their stories and a lot of plot to be told that don't have series right now, like Spider-Gwen or Silk, and luckily we do have a Spider-Woman comic coming out. And, you know, I just think there's plenty of other characters we could focus on. And so we have this ongoing book with SpiderBoy, and I've been kind of lukewarm with the character. I've been excited for the idea of finding something big about him, because there's the promise of something big of like, oh, he has this mysterious past. How does he know Spider-Man? And you don't really get close to that answer here. Again, you get little breadcrumbs throughout this and in the previous Spider-Man series, but nothing to be like, whoa, this is Spider-Boy, this is great. But if you like the fun, whimsical side of Spider-Man, especially if you just enjoy Dan Slott's humor, I think you'll like this book. I do like Dan Slott's humor. I don't know if I particularly am interested in this character. I feel like it's something we've seen before. We've seen the young hero take over the mantle before, even though obviously he's not Spider-Man, still Spider-Man, but we've seen this type of character before. We've seen sidekicks. So I'm just curious to see how he can find his own voice, and I didn't really see that with this issue. I didn't really find the hook, I think is the best thing to say. But the artwork was good, and I think if it depends what flavor you're looking for with your Spider comics. Just because it wasn't for me doesn't mean it won't be for you. I think it's a good thing that this is an ongoing book. I just don't know if it's my ongoing book, I think is the best way to put it. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is the Sacrificers issue 4. Honestly, I've been liking this. It's a bit of a slow burn comic, but the beginning was really solid, where we get to see how the family reacts to their son being gone. And obviously these gods, they don't know it, but these gods are just utilizing the sacrifices to become youthful. And we pretty much get to see the aftermath of that and what that looks like. And that's this issue. There's not a ton that happens, but it's building this very interesting world that I'm still very curious to see what it's all about. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Ghost Lore issue 6, a book I feel like has been pretty solid. I like the premise. Mostly I like the characters. This one does focus on the priest character, who I like a little less than the daughter. I think the daughter issue was a little stronger. I think she's more interesting. But we get to see what extent he'll go to try to find his daughter. We obviously get a little bit more explanation of the lore, a little less than we did last issue, but at least we get to see it from a different point of view. I also love the art. It's the same artist who's done Basket Full of Heads, which is one of my favorite current horror franchises, and that was from DC Comics. It was a good issue, but I think it was a little bit more point A to point B with this one, but I'm curious to see what it means for the future of this series. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is X-Men issue 28. This is an interesting issue because the beginning was kind of slow until you get to Firestar and you get to Kitty, because I love Kitty. But yeah, Firestar, you get to see how she's playing this mole character and exactly what that looks like. We get a lot of that in this issue. And then in the end, we get to see Kitty, Wolverine, and Miss Marvel team up, which I felt like was a very interesting trio. Because Miss Marvel, if she started as an X-Men, I think she would have been your Kitty Pryde type character, or your Jubilee, the character that Wolverine would put under your wings. So I'm curious to see what Miss Marvel's role will be in that. But there's a good amount of interesting character moments in this one that made me enjoy the issue. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2. It's Jeff, the Jeff First, issue 1. This is just such a cute comic. I loved the first issue. And honestly, this does a very similar vibe. It's just following Jeff in his everyday life and doing cute things. And one thing I love about this comic is that it's not really a vocal comic. It really does rely a lot on its art. And it's still so comedic. And I miss comedic comics. I think they should exist, and this is proof of that. I like that this book that existed and was birthed through the internet was able to find a place in print, and people can enjoy it in a different form as well. And I think that's so important, and I hope people enjoy this book as much as I do. If I had a little bit of a nitpick, I think the first issue showcased more characters, so we got to see Jeff interact with the whole Marvel universe a little bit more. This is more specific about Jeff, but I loved it. I loved every moment. I had a really good time with it, and I can't wait to see even more from the character and even more from this type of storytelling, because I think that superhero comics need more of these type of comics. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Supergirl Special Issue 1. I really enjoyed this. This was a book I was very much anticipating because I loved Mariko's Supergirl being super. It's one of my favorite comics, and it's my favorite Supergirl comic, and I've read a lot of Supergirl in my day. And, I feel like Supergirl is in this weird place and has been in this weird place for over 5 years of what do we do with this character that people really, really love? Because we've had so many different versions of her. We have the classic Silver Age version, and then the return version, the edgier version in the 2000s, but then the 2010s that kind of mix both the Silver Age and the edgier character. And then they're like, that edginess we saw in the 2000s, let's just dial that up to 10,000. And now we're here, and the super family are back together, and they're all fighting together, and everyone's trying to find their place in this big cast. And I found that this book did a really good job at balancing it all, like telling us a story that feels very present, and if you've been reading Superman, it feels very familiar to those stories, all while telling a somewhat angsty story that feels grounded and not too angry, where we get to see Supergirl deal with her trauma of losing her planet. Again, that's usually the trauma we always see with Supergirl, but I feel like it actually pulled themes that you normally don't get. It's not just like, oh, I miss my parents. It was pulling through ideas that she felt on Krypton, feeling second best, and she's like, oh, there's things on Krypton that I'm not nostalgic for. I'm actually feeling repetitive about, all while Power Girl's back. I just felt like it really blended everything really well and seamlessly and organically, and I hope if we get to see a Supergirl miniseries or ongoing book, this would be the vibe we get, because I really feel like it perfectly balanced everything we know about Supergirl and everything I want the character to be, with some splendid art that just works for this book and does really well with the flashbacks and the present as well. So overall, I'm giving that 4 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite comic was, and last week's favorite book was Wonder Woman, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.